Welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast from the Action Network and Fantasy Labs. I'm your host, Chris Raybon. NFL Week 2 is here. This is our player projections episode. As always, I'm joined by one of the most accurate projectors in the game, the odds maker, Sean Kerner. Sean, what's going on?
What's up? Like I mentioned on our previous pod, I love week 1 because it means the season started, but it's one of my least favorite weeks to project because it just feels like guessing. We're just going off articles and stuff. But week 2 is one of my favorite. It feels like Christmas morning, seeing like actual like data, usage numbers, routes run rates, some film, defensive numbers to at least go off of. So I am pumped for week 2. And I feel like it's always people either over or underreact to the data. So it's always fun, like getting our first glimpse at like these offenses and defenses and everything. But yeah, very excited about this.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think people do tend to over and underreact. And I mean, there's spots to kind of over and underreact. So we'll kind of get to some of those with the guys we're high and low on at each position. We'll jump into quarterback first. But before we do, just want to quickly remind everyone, all of our fantasy football content is available right now over on fantasylabs.com. You can find all of our award-winning rankings and projections, tools, and more at fantasylabs.com. All right, we're going to go top 5 at each skill position. Guys we're high on, guys we're low on, and we'll set a prop. Start with quarterback. Who's your top 5 for week 2?
I got Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Anthony Richardson.
I got Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jaden Daniels.
There you go.
Already. I mean, he finished his QB3 last week, so.
Wait, who did you not have in your top 5?
Richardson.
Oh,
he's number 7. He just, I love the deep throws, but I don't know if that's sustainable, and it could be like Malik Willis scares me. Like that game, the Colts might not need to score more than 14 points. So Daniels against the Giants, just 2 bad defenses. So we'll see how that goes.
And
but
Richardson needs to learn how to slide. He's still not sliding. It's scaring me. But that's my
Daniels just needs a tighter helmet. Richardson needs to know how to slide, and Daniels needs a tighter helmet. Because you peeped how many times his helmet flew off. I think at one point they did like a montage of his helmet flying off. It was wild.
And did you hear Dan Quinn saying he doesn't want him to run as much? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, well,
that's like that. That's their offense. Like, what do you want him to do?
He had 100 yards passing for like the first 3.5 quarters. So I think you might, want to keep him running. Okay, who are you high on this week?
Well, I'm sticking with the same guy I mentioned in the waivers pod, but it's Baker Mayfield this week against the Lions. You know, he finished as a QB2 overall in week 1, thanks to, 4 touchdown passes. But as you noted, it was encouraging to see that he's still pretty good, even without Dave Canales there. So that was an encouraging sign. I'm not going to overreact to it too much, just given it was against the Commanders defense. But, he, Evans, Godwin looked sharp and on the same page. And as I mentioned, they were one of the few offenses that actually played their starters, albeit briefly, in the preseason. But I think that definitely helped them week 1. And this week's matchup, I think, is pretty good as well. The Lions have a good defense, but they're more of a pass funnel. And the Buccaneers secondary is dealing with a ton of injuries right now. So I think the Lions are going to easily put up some points here, make this a shootout. So I think Baker and the offense they're going to have to be pass heavy in order to keep up with Detroit. So he's a fringe QB1 for me. I have Baker as my QB13 to open the week.
Yeah, and even if it's volume this week, last week it was efficiency. This week it might be volume because, like you said, that the Bucs secondary is just decimated, and the Lions, I think they're going to be able to put up some points this week. So one way or another, Baker should be able to get there. I was high on Jaden Daniels last week. As I mentioned, he finishes the QB3. I'll try to keep it going this week with a guy going against Daniels, and that's Daniel Jones on the other side of that matchup in Washington. He's my QB16 to open the week. ECR at Fantasy Pros has him at QB22. Washington allowed Mayfield 80% completions, 9.6 yards an attempt, the second most points to quarterbacks, and Mayfield didn't even really have to run too much. And then mention this on the waivers pod that we did as well. But Daniel Jones just has these really large sample home road splits that favor the road, which he's on the road for this matchup. On the road in his career, 6.9 yards an attempt, 35 touchdowns, 14 picks. At home, 5.8 yards an attempt, 27 touchdowns, 28 picks. I don't know what it is. I mean, even as a Giants fan, the only thing I could think of is, number one, I guess tends to be, those swirling winds. And number two, the crowd in East Rutherford hasn't had much to cheer about for, like the last dozen years or so. And Daniel Jones has been, there for all of those years. So, maybe it just gets in his head a little. Who knows? But it's kind of at this point, talking about 5+ years of data, you can't just ignore it anymore. So tend to target him in these kind of spots. So like him against this Washington defense that, I mean, man, everyone except Bobby Wagner and a couple of guys on their defensive line. It was just like no one could tackle anybody. So even if the Giants just throw a lot of short passes, they might be able to get it done here. All right, who are you low
on? Kirk Cousins. He's a guy I was curious to see, how he looked coming off his Achilles, and it did not look good. And it wasn't like he had a bad game, and we're like, I wonder if his Achilles is impacting his play. It was visibly recognizable that it was impacting him because he was either unable or unwilling to really put weight on his right plant foot, his Achilles tear foot when he dropped back. So, he just had horrible mechanics. He rushed plays. He looked like he did not want to take a sack. So he wasn't a very mobile quarterback to begin with, but he's extremely limited right now. So it's just a very bad situation. I don't see how things turn around in just a week. I don't see how he can gain his confidence or feel better about his foot in just a week. So if I would not be shocked if we do see Michael Penix at some point. So right now you can't trust Cousins himself. Obviously he's my QB 25, but it does also raise my concerns about, other skill players like Drake London, Kyle Pitts, even, which this is just going to be a rough situation until he can figure it out, or until the Falcons can maybe go to Penix. It's just a situation to avoid, in my opinion. But he has a tough spot against this Eagles defensive line. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he looks in week 2, but I'm not encouraged after the first week.
Yeah, it's tough with Cousins because I'm down on him as well. And I think the issue with him for me is you kind of laid it out. He didn't really move around. And this is one of those situations where you kind of think about it. Okay, he'll probably get better as the season progresses, but it could actually get worse before it gets better because he didn't look close in week 1. And now you had a whole week of film. The Falcons are staying in shotgun. Yeah. The Falcons are running like 100% 1-1 personnel. You've seen like 50, 60 of their plays now. He got worse as that game progressed after Pittsburgh realized they could just bring pressure. So now he might just get blitzed constantly. So this is one of those things that could actually, the Falcons are just too, that's one of the reasons I kind of like the Steelers and the under last week, was because I just thought the Falcons would be easy to prepare for because their offense is so one-dimensional. And then, with Cousins going to be in shotgun almost all the time because he can't take, doesn't really want to drop back and put weight on that foot. And he can't move around in the pocket. Like, I just think that's, like, unless he gets like 100% by week 2, it's going to get worse. It's more likely, I should say, to get worse before it gets better. So, yeah, I'm selling Kirk Cousins in the Falcons offense right now. For me, it's Trevor Lawrence. I was low on Brock Purdy last week, and that turned out well. He ended up finishing as the QB 24 in a tough matchup. It was mostly Jordan Mason against the Jets, but Lawrence for me this week is my QB 23. Expert consensus has him QB 18, but I think he's kind of a fringe guy even in 2 QB leagues because Cleveland did give up 33 last week, but held Dak to 19 of 32 for 179, no tutties, and sacked him 3 times. So Dallas only 163 at net passing yards. Jacksonville, a lot more run heavy than we expected. And in the Miami Heat, 50% design passes, just 21 pass attempts for Trevor Lawrence last week, and now you're at home, so you're in a 86% is the 86, excuse me, is the forecast with 76% humidity. You have a 40% chance of precipitation right now, and double-digit winds as well. So could be just an odd slog of a weather game again. And with Jacksonville looking to run a little bit more, their pass rate versus expectation was one of the kind of surprises of week one. Didn't expect them to be that low, but Cleveland's another good pass defense. So just like Miami has some talent, at corner and safety, so does Cleveland. So it could be another one of those kind of below expectation pass games, especially in this type of weather. So I'm being conservative with Lawrence. I liked how Thomas looked. I thought the weapons are still there, but maybe they don't feel as comfortable pass protecting with that line or what. I don't know what it is, but pass rate versus expectation only takes about 2-3 games to stabilize. It's a very sticky stat. So even just 1 week being that low does impact, his volume projections a little bit. And they're at home, so they're actually a favorite against Cleveland. And like you said, Deshaun Watson was Bryce Young in it out there. So it could be a lower scoring game than we even expect. And the Jags might be able to run it again a lot. So just a lot of reasons to kind of not like or not love Trevor Lawrence this week, even in 2 QB leagues. I think he's on the fringe. All right. Prop. Well, by the way, we both went 2-0 on props. So that
as in the person setting the line lost.
No, yeah, the person setting the line lost. I look at it from the person betting it won. Both. So yeah, I think for me it was Daniels above whatever it was, 13.5 or 12.5 for quarterbacks. So, but I'm setting the line this week. Let's see where we're gonna go. Let's go Jaden Daniels rushing yards, since they said they don't want him to run as much, and that's such a key part of what he is. Actually, no. Let's go Jaden Daniels total yards, rushing plus passing, because, like I said, he had like 100 yards for like 3 quarters, and then he had that last drive where he tacked on some more. But so let's go Jaden Daniels total yards. I'm going to set the line at 249.5.
Oh, that's a good one. I was thinking like 245. I'll lean under.
All right. Yeah. I mean, Sam Darnold didn't throw an incompletion until his 14th pass against the Giants. So we could see an explosion through the air from Jaden Daniels, but I don't know. Like it looked kind of shaky at times, even though the numbers, I mean, compared to some of the other rookie quarterbacks, I guess the passing numbers look great because he was like 17 of 24, $188, well over 7 yards an attempt, but they were clearly limiting him, and the good thing is he would scramble a lot, so that's why I think the total yards are interesting.
Right.
But
that's a good line, and I think just right now with the passing offenses being behind, the rushing offense was ahead. Like I think it was like the highest average rushing yards a game since like 2008 or something like that. But it just seems like you'd want Jaden Daniels to be running this time of year while the pass defense is ahead of the offense. So it's very bizarre. I don't. This is coach speak. I think it's just going to go out the window. I think he's still going to run it a shit ton this week, or scramble.
Yeah, I have him for 200 yards passing, 50 rushing. So he had 80. He had about $184, I think, passing, and 88 rushing, if I'm not mistaken, last week. But 88, that's a huge number. Even Lamar Jackson usually averages in like the 60s. So I'm expecting some regression, being a little conservative there. But really interested to see how that turns out. But I think one way or another, this Giants defense, he should get there somehow in terms of fantasy. All right, let's jump to running back, top 5 for week 2. Who you got?
Breece Hall, our boy Kyron Williams, number 2. There we go. Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, and Joe Mixon, with Jordan Mason just missing my top 5.
Yeah, I got Breece, Bijan, Saquon, Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon. So Kyron is like not there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, he's a little. I mean, he definitely moved up now that we don't have to worry about Corum like instantly. But the Rams, like I said, they got like Avila went down. Jackson suspended another game, so he had 18 carries and only 50 yards, or 18 or 19 carries, only 50 yards rushing. Ended up still hitting that Sunday night convinced me prop, even though he got more carries than I thought he would. But who are you high on at running back this week?
I'm high. The first back I'm high on is Zach Moss at Kansas City. And I expected this Bengals backfield to be pretty even to start the season and be sort of a hot hand situation. That certainly could still be the case going forward. But week one was encouraging for Moss, at least. He was pretty much the clear lead back. He saw most of the receiving work, which I thought was a bit surprising, but it is what it is. But that's very important this week, as the Bengals, they're nearly 7-point dogs at Kansas City. And then it's also a matchup where early on they probably want to try to lean on the run as much as possible because KC is more of a run funnel defense. So Moss is also the goal line back most likely. So this could just be a sneaky spot for him as long as the week one usage holds. Obviously, this is a volatile situation. The Bengals offense looked really rough. But he opens the week as my RB22, so I think he is, a low end RB2 play, but it was at least very encouraging for Moss in terms of a usage standpoint for week one. And the other back I am very high on is David Montgomery against the Bucks. The Lions' backfield usage was pretty much as expected. Week one, Monty did end up out touching Gibbs 18-15, which was what you can usually expect when the Lions, have the lead for most of the game. Plus, Gibbs is working his way back from a hamstring injury, so I figured, they might limit him somewhat, at least to begin the season. But I think this is another good week for Montgomery, where the Lions should play with the lead for most of the game. Plus, I've been mentioning Tampa Bay secondaries all banged up, which doesn't really have a direct impact on, Montgomery specifically, but, it could mean more goal line carries for Monty and Gibbs, and for the Lions to just play with a lead, which also helps Montgomery. So all of these, factors are in play here, and he's RB12 to open the week up, according to my projections.
Yeah, I have him at RB13. I have him about 14 carries for 68 and a catch and a half for about 12 yards. So about 80 total yards for Monty on about 15, 16 touches. And what do I have him for touchdowns? 0.75 rushing and so about 0.8 touchdowns. So yeah, that's borderline RB1 status. And yeah, Gibbs is still there, and Gibbs is going to be more of a factor in the receiving game. Monty's still, with that offensive line, he's still going to eat on the ground. All right. Kenneth Walker came through for me last week, ended up finishing as the RB number 9. This week, I'm going a couple guys. First, Joe Mixon. I have him as a top 5 running back mentioned, going up against Chicago, and he's the ECR running back 10, so I have about 5 spots high on him. He's a home favorite back, which we like. 6.5 point favorite. 33 touches in his first game as a Texan, 178 yards and a touchdown. He had 30 carries for 159 on the ground with the touch, and then caught 3 balls for 18. And Chicago was very good against Will Levis through the air, but on the ground they did allow 5.2 yards per carry and a touchdown to Titans backs, so and Titans runners. So and they also allowed 7 catches on 8 targets to Titans backs. So I do like Mixon. He's getting most of the work in that backfield. Dameon Pierce only mixed in a couple of times. Agumbawale, a couple of passing down snaps here and there. But, the fact that they're willing to feed Mixon 33 touches kind of speaks volumes. There's not many backs that are even, like the coaching staffs are even willing to give him that many. And it kind of reminds me of Singletary down the stretch last year when they just said, all right, you know what? We're going to have a number 1 back. It's not going to be Dameon Pierce. And, Singletary was racking up these huge workloads, but Mixon is a more talented guy than Singletary. And so I like that upside on this Houston offense, especially since Chicago looks to be weaker defending the run than the pass. And then the other guy, James Conner, I have him 5 spots higher as well. He's my RB11. He's ECR RB16. He's another home favorite running back. 19 touches, 83 yards, and a touchdown last week against the Bills. 16 carries, 4 targets. The Rams allow the third most points to running backs. Now, that's maybe a little inflated because you have that Gibbs-Montgomery tandem, but the Rams did allow 28 for 131 and 2 touchdowns on the ground to Lion running backs, and then another 5 for 36 through the air. And Connor's playing about 2/3 of the snaps, and he's still getting fed. He still looks really good out there. And Trey Benson, I think, got one drive. Like, there was a point in the game, I think Benson got like 3 straight carries, and I was like, uh-oh, there goes Connor's workload already. And then that was pretty much it for Benson. DeMarcado, kind of the Agumbalale of this offense, but Connor is still that guy in the red zone. He's still the guy that they're trying to get the ball to, especially with Marvin Harrison Jr. Looking like a flop early on because Kyler is pretty inaccurate, in that intermediate range of the field. So I think they're going to have to continue feeding Connor, especially with the Rams defense on a short week after seeing what the Lions did to him in the game that went into overtime, no less. So they played a lot of snaps. So a little bit of a worn down, maybe, not quite conditioned right because it's still, week 1, week 2 now for this Rams defense. They didn't play in the preseason. So, yeah, a lot to like about James Conner. For now, I should say.
Well, he's healthy anyway.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is the time to play him. It's like the reason he's RB 20, 25 in season long is because we're projecting like double the amount of missed games for him because he never plays more than like 13 games.
Well, yeah, he consistently misses 3 games, but that's kind of the median for running backs, right? Is 2 to 3 games. So
he consistently misses like 4 or 5. I have like most running backs like 14, 15, and him like 13.
But some of these backs in this range, some weeks you're benching him, but he's consistent every time he's healthy. You're going to play him, and he's going to miss 3 to 4 games. We know that, but I'm with you. He's my RB13, and Joe Mixon's my RB5, so we're on the same page with these guys.
Speaking of guys missing games, J.K. Dobbins had a big week 1, and you said you were low on Gus Edwards last week on this podcast, and you were correct about that. He finishes the RB47. Who are you low on this week?
I'm low on Javonte Williams. I mentioned on the waiver pod that this is really a 50-50 backfield right now with Javonte and Jill McLaughlin. I think everybody, including myself, kind of figured Javonte would, maybe be like a 65-35 type of lead back, but that was not the case. Plus, with Bo Nix just either unable or unwilling to push the ball downfield, it was allowing the Seahawks to stack the box. So Javonte faced a stack box on 50% of his rush attempts, which was the second highest rate of week 1. So unless, they have Nix throw more downfield, that might be a trend that continues for Javonte specifically, just knowing that when he's in there, they're probably more likely to run it and just not worried about Nix throwing it downfield. So this is just another tough spot for him against the Steelers here. The Broncos have the 3rd lowest team total of the week, so Javonte's touchdown odds really take a hit. But he just has a very low floor, so he's outside of the RB3 flex mix for me this week. He's my RB36 and trending down just in terms of usage for me. And then another guy is Josh Jacobs against the Colts. And, it's pretty obvious that the Packers pass catchers clearly get a massive downgrade with Jordan Love out and with Malik Willis expected to start. He might not even throw for more than 150 yards here against the Colts. But even if the Colts or the Packers have to lean on the running game and Josh Jacobs more here, it's just going to hurt his efficiency. The Colts are going to know that they want to run. They're not going to really worry about, Malik throwing it downfield or anything. So I think they're going to be able to stack the box here. It's just going to be tough for Jacobs to rack up yards here and probably won't see many, if any, goal line opportunities just based on how inefficient I think this offense will be. Plus, last week, Emmanuel Wilson played through a questionable tag, looked good. And, Marshawn Lloyd could return this week. So last week was, I think, the peak in terms of, Josh Jacobs maximizing touches. This week there might be a little bit more of a mix behind him. So just a lot of concerns for the Packers offense overall. But I think also Josh Jacobs. So he's my RB24 to open the week.
Actually, I'm on the other side of Jacobs. I have him still as a RB12 because I actually think he's going to maximize touches this week because the Malik Willis in his starts averaged about 11% pass rate under expectation. He just got to Green Bay, so he doesn't really know the full offense. Maybe he's worked with some of the assistant coaches, I believe, but he doesn't really know the full offense. So I think you're just going to see a ton of runs, dump offs to Jacobs. So I actually think he'll get 20 plus touches this week because I just don't think Green Bay. Like we saw, Malik couldn't even get the Hail Mary off. Like they can't. Well, like, they can't throw with this guy. Yeah, he didn't get it off. He didn't get it off.
We're on the same page. Our projections are just spitting out different numbers. I think Jacobs will push 20 touches this week. I think the one thing that would help is if Malik Willis checks it down to him. That's the thing that. It's still Tuesday morning. I'm still trying to figure this out. I think Malik is going to be more willing to pull it down than run than he is to check it down to Jacobs, which is kind of like lowering my Jacobs projection. If you think that he'll check it down to Jacobs could end up with 4 to 5 catches here. That's how I think he still ends up putting up RB1 value. So maybe that's where we're differing is maybe you have Jacobs for, a few catches. Which could be the case, but I think that's probably where we're differing with him because I do think he's going to see, 16, 17 rush attempts. Again, very low touchdown odds, but I'm with you. I think they are going to want to lean on Jacobs at least early on, and we'll see if that works. But I just think his efficiency is going to be very low with the Colts kind of knowing that's going to be the approach here.
I mean, the Texans just abandoned the pass in the second half, and Joe Mixon ended up with 30 carries for $159. So I don't know if the Colts knowing is really helping, but I mean, you know what I mean?
You still have to worry about CJ Stroud in that case.
Yeah, but I mean, the Texans made it obvious. Yeah, no, I know. No, he's going to face a ton of stacked boxes, but I just think it's going to be him and Jaden Reed in this one because they're going to have to get guys. Malik Willis is just incapable, from what we've seen, of doing anything.
Right.
That takes time in the pocket, drop it, going downfield. I think it's just going to have to be allowed him quick, get the ball out of his hands, hand it off, and maybe get Kraft and Musgrave on the field at the same time.
There's still enough time for them to trade for Josh Dobbs and for him to once again start. Man. 24 hours of the playbook. So there's still time for that. If that happens, maybe I'll change my projection for Jacobs.
That would be hilarious. Bench for Dobbs again. Okay, for me, I was low on Kyron last week. He did end up finishing as the RB23, though. His probably season-long stock went up a little because it looks like Corum doesn't have a role early on, although who knows what McVay, next week, right. He'd end up getting 8 carries. It is a short week, but the guy I'm down on is the guy I was down on season-long as well. It's Jaylen Warren. I'm 8 spots lower than consensus. I have him RB50, consensus RB42. He only had 2 of the 26 backfield carries last week. Najee Harris had 20, so maybe we get that Derrick Henry breakout after all. But Cordell Patterson also mixed in for 4 carries, and Warren had a 32% route rate, which was lower than Najee's 42%. And with Patterson mixing in, it just complicates things because last year it was just a strict 1-2 punch. I don't even remember who the number 3 back on the Steelers was. Was it McFarland or Benny Snell? I don't even remember, but he wasn't playing much, whoever it was. And this year, and remember, Patterson is an Arthur Smith guy. So it's not, even with, as Warren gets a little healthier, because he does have the hamstring, I don't know if he's going to hit that usage rate that he was at last year. And that's what we were kind of counting on for him to give us that fringe flex value. So right now, I think he belongs on benches across the board. And, they still haven't, they're still kind of being mum on exactly how healthy he is. So until we see a game of him, getting, those double-digit touches, I think we have to keep him on our benches. And it just might be a lost pick if Patterson continues to mix in all year.
Yeah, just going back to the Rams backfield real quick. I said you just can't trust McVay, which is saying I don't know what the hell he's going to do. But the fact that Ronnie Rivers was operating ahead of Blake Corum was surprising. But again, it's McVay. But the thing with McVay, these trends can be sticky week to week. So I think that's why this week I have Kyron inside my top three, because it does look like he is the workhorse back right now, and that could change at any given time. Which is kind of my point. I don't like investing on early round draft capital on McVay for that reason. But as of now, Kyron Williams, in my opinion, is clearly a top 5 back.
Yeah, I don't like the line, but yeah, against Arizona, it should be moot. But
yeah,
I'm still being a little conservative just because he's coming off somewhat of a short week and just couldn't get it going on the ground. Again, it's a pretty good defense, so we'll see how it goes. But I need more to put him back in that top 5 just with all the weirdness. But what are you doing for the prop?
Let's go with J.K. Dobbins rushing yards, because I think he is, kind of on that. The RB3 flex mix, could be involved in sit-start decisions. Had a great week 1. Just curious where you're projecting him after that. I'm going to set the opening line at 50.5 rushing yards.
That's a good...
Against the Panthers at Carolina.
I got to go over. It's the Panthers. It's the Panthers. I'm going over. He might get that on one run. He did get out carried by Gus last week, but as the game progressed, it seemed like they were getting more and more confident in Dobbins, and he broke a couple of big runs. So yeah, it's something where he's an in-game injury risk at all times, and he definitely, his acceleration is lacking. Like he got caught from behind a few times, but I do think that with just the Panthers in disarray, and remember they lost Derek Brown, who's like their best interior lineman, and he might be done for the year, probably, but should be out this week. And this is a Panther team that gave up over 170 rushing yards to Saints backs last week. So I gotta go over, but it's a good line. All right, wide receiver, top 5.
I got CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, and AJ Brown.
I got Cooper Kupp, like it's back in 2021.
Whoa, there we go.
14 targets in week 1 and no Puka. And Arizona, yeah, definitely Cooper Kupp, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, AJ Brown. So not too fancy here, except for Kupp, who he looked like he's back to. Now now he'll be back in that, I think like Nakua was kind of playing the Kupp role for a while there.
Yeah.
So now it seems like Kupp is back in the Kupp role.
It's like Kupp squared. He gets both roles now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Who are you high on?
Well, like I mentioned, Deebo Samuel's in my top 5, so might as well talk about him a little bit. Not that there was any doubt you're going to start him, but he gets a massive boost in usage without McCaffrey. I mean, we saw that he had 8 rush attempts, only 23 yards, but a touchdown, and then 5 catches for 54 yards receiving. But this is another good spot for him against the Vikings. They play a ton of zone, which sets up even better for him. Usually when, they play a defense that plays a ton of zone, that's a boost for McCaffrey's, Deebo and Kittle. So without McCaffrey there, Deebo's just picking up just an extra few touches a game as a result. So, big spot for him, especially with, Brandon Ayuk. I'll talk about him in a bit, but he's probably limited again this week because he missed most of the camp. So, that's why Deebo Samuel opens the week inside my top 5. Another guy I'm high on is Keenan Allen against the Texans. It sounds like Rome Odunze is going to miss this week and potentially more, unfortunately, with the knee injury. If that's the case, Allen would go from a fringe wide receiver 3 sit-start decision to, a low-end wide receiver 2 at least. Because last week it was kind of surprising. He and Odunze were splitting work in 2 wide receiver sets. It was always interesting to me how they were going to kind of figure out how to play these 3 studs. And it seemed like Odunze was really cutting into, potential Keenan Allen playing time. So this is a spot where if Odunze is out, Keenan's going to be a full-time player. move up the target pecking order. So this is a matchup at Houston where the Bears are probably going to have to throw quite a bit. So I like Keenan to break out here. This all hinges on Caleb Williams not looking like complete shit again this week. So I'm kind of banking on him not being, Bryce Young bad. But after week one, it's hard to say, have much confidence in it. But I do think Caleb will bounce back. I think he's much better than what we saw week one. So assuming all this, Keenan opens the week as my wide receiver 23.
Yeah, I like Keenan. I think Keenan also pulled up lame at one point, so he might have missed some snaps because of that, as usual.
Well, he entered the game kind of iffy, right? He's been kind of battling some injuries, old age kind of stuff.
Yeah, his quarterback.
Yeah, that too.
But yeah, no, I mean he's got to be higher with Odunze out, especially with the tight ends kind of now. Like Cole Kmet's not even really a factor.
Oh.
It's just Allen should be the clear number 2 target, if not the number 1. Last week, Stephon Diggs and Rashee Rice came through for me. Top 15 finishes. Talked about them on this pod. This week, the guy I'm hiring is Jameson Williams. I have him as a wide receiver 18. He's wide receiver 33 ECR. and this is a guy who former round 1 pick finally broke out. 5 catches, 121 yards, and a touchdown and 8 targets, 30 routes, ran a route on 94% of the dropbacks. And remember, they don't really have another like Khalif Raymond is not really the guy that even wanted wide receiver 3. Like they would prefer him as the number 4 because he does so much on special teams and return game. But yeah, Jameson Williams is pretty much an every snap player now, and he had a 30% target market share, a 65% air yard share in week 1. And Tampa Bay lost 3 of their 4 active cornerbacks last week. Bryce Hall, definitely going to be out with a leg injury. And then Antoine Winfield, their safety, doubtful with a foot injury. Zion McCollum, another corner, questionable with a concussion. And Josh Hayes, questionable with an ankle. So Tampa Bay is just decimated on the back end. But you're still in a tough spot when you play the Lions because you still got to prepare for St. Brown and Laporta in addition to Williams. So it's not like you could just say, oh, we're doubling Williams and that's that, so
right.
He's probably going to get some one-on-one opportunities again against some pretty questionable backups or banged up starters for the Tampa Bay secondary. So I like Jameson Williams. This Lions team implied point total is pushing 30 this week. So really like Jameson. Finally, I've been low on him most of his career, but he looks like a different. I was hearing all camp that he looked good, but never know with this guy because he didn't show it for a while. But I thought he came on with the toward the end of last year and into the playoffs as well, just like playing really hard as a run blocker and just making more guys miss. And now he's finally getting opportunities to be a big part of the offense because they need that third, fourth option in the passing game, especially at receiver, to take some pressure off St. Brown. So like JMO this week against the Bucks. Who are you low on?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I'm low on Brandon Ayuk at least for one more week against the Vikings. I hit on, his under 3.5 reception prop last night, assuming he would be somewhat limited after holding out most of camp. That did end up, coming true. He put up a dud, but he did drop a touchdown. So he's always going to have touchdown upside. But this is a matchup, against the Vikings where, again, they play heavy zone defense. This is typically a better spot for Debo and George Kittle. So I'm just expecting another, down week for him. He's my wide receiver 28. Obviously, you can start him if you want to tap into that touchdown upside, but he does feel a little bit more touchdown dependent until, he gets the snap rates up. And then the other guy I'm down on is, every, Packers pass catcher, but Romeo Doubs specifically, I think, because when it comes to the passing offense, it's so spread out. They have 5 to 6 guys that could go off any given week. And, I'm also down on Jaden Reed and Christian Watson, but those are 2 guys where they could catch like a screen pass and take it 80 yards to the house and make me look like an idiot. So I think Romeo Doubs is probably the one pass catcher that really, depends on the scheme and, Jordan Love being good to really put up numbers, and he needs, a high target rate. So I think he's probably the guy with the biggest drop when it comes to, having Malik Willis under center. So he's all the way down to wide receiver 61 for me. Like I said, I think Reed and Watson are probably outside of startable range for me, but again, they're talented enough where I think they could have an explosive play. So if you're in a desperate situation, you might be able to roll one of those two guys, but I think Dobbs is the guy that's a clear sit this week, at least until Jordan Love can come back.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't trust any of the Packers receivers. Jaden Reed is the closest one, just because I think he could do a lot of work in a run game, and he's just explosive. Yeah, I mean, I guess Watson is too, but Watson relies a little more on like red zone stuff, and Malik Willis as a passer, I do not want anything to do with him. So yeah, Dobbs, he's running the most routes, but he needs Jordan Love.
Yep.
I hit on Garrett Wilson being low on him last week. He ended up finishing as a wide receiver 33. I think he dropped the key fourth down, and it essentially ended the Jets' hopes. It wasn't a great throw from Rodgers, but definitely could have came down with it. This week, I'm low on Marvin Harrison Jr. And it was just concerning. 3 targets, 1 catch for 4 yards, despite running 36 routes. I know, sometimes rookies take a while, but for the amount of talent this guy has, to be targeted on just 8% of his routes, it's like Kyler Murray almost never looked at him. And that's just concerning, especially since, Kyler had a full offseason this year. But a bigger issue might just be Kyler struggles to that, intermediate deep part of the field. He was just 1 for 7 for 5 yards on passes 10 or more yards down the field, according to PFF data. And last season, he was just 35 of 79 on passes 10 plus yards downfield, 44%. So he's just not an efficient passer when he's going downfield. So that means Harrison, that's where he's really going to do most of his work. Intermediate to deep. You have McBride, short to intermediate. You have you have Connor, you have Greg Dortch. So, Wilson and Harrison are the guys that are going to do their work more downfield. And Kyler Murray, he's just struggled with his accuracy. I mean, he even missed McBride on one where he should have just pulled it down and ran, and he threw up this prayer that he didn't need to throw up, and probably gave up a sure first down. But yeah, he's just really shaky on those passes. So I have him as my wide receiver 25. ECR still has him as wide receiver 15. I think if you're starting 3 wide receivers in a 12-team league, you're not benching them yet. But if you're starting 2 wide receivers, there's a good chance you could be able to bench him if you have 2. You should have 2 wide receivers better than him this week, because I think you want to at least see some, more than 3 targets, or, a big play, something. Yeah. Kyler, something has to give here before we're just ranking him as a top 15 guy. So yeah, I'm 10 spots lower on him to open the week.
Yeah, to be fair, there was a ton of wind in Buffalo, so maybe that's why Kyler was a bit hesitant to throw. But I'm with you. Marvin's my wide receiver 25. His season-long ECR ended at wide receiver 9, and I know we're both high on Marvin as a talent, but I always thought that the market was a little too bullish on him, at least heading into his rookie season, and I did not expect the dud that we saw week 1, so that was very concerning. I think he bounces back this week, but I'm kind of with you. I think he's more of a low-end wide receiver 2 until Kyler and he can prove it.
And Kyler is also another one of those guys. He's been less efficient at home than he has on the road. So even though, you would expect him to be more efficient because there's not really any weather issues, but he's generally been a guy that does a little better on the road in terms of efficiency. Prop, let's stay with Marvin Harrison Jr. Receiving yards.
Ooh.
Over under 52.5.
That's exactly where I have it.
Nice.
Damn. Maybe Kyler's worse at home because it's more convenient to play Call of Duty. There, everything's done with the Call of Duty conspiracy.
That's never gonna, man.
I'm gonna lean over. That's a great line though.
All right.
Week 2's bounce back week. That's my angle on this.
Oh no, it definitely is. I have him. I have him right around 4 catches for 52 median, a little
Yep.
higher on the average, about in the high 50s. But with just the intermediate to deep struggles, I just worry. Like they might like try to feed him underneath just to get him going. But I don't know if the yardage is going to be there or not. It's kind of like a toss up. So that's why I wanted to get your opinion on that. All right, let's close it out with tight end week 2, top 5. Who do you got?
Oh boy. Top 5 is pretty normal. Travis Kelce, Trey McBride, Sam Laporta, George Kittle, Mark Andrews.
I got Kelce, Laporta, McBride, Pitts, Kittle. Pitts ended up running a route on 100% of the dropbacks. So
yeah,
that was nice. I mean, he did catch a touchdown. It's not like Kirk Cousins can move, so I guess he's gonna have to throw the ball, not pull it down. But what you're high on Chigakonkwo last week. He ended up finishing as the tight end 6 on just a dumpster fire of a week, as you mentioned, for tight end. Who do you like this week?
Yeah, you finished tight end 6. What do you have, like 5 points then?
8, I think 8.5 and half PPR.
Oh boy, what a disaster. I'm high on Hayden Hurst this week at Carolina. Sort of a revenge game for him. But I whiffed on Hurst under 21.5 receiving yards. I thought his prop was a bit high, just considering we didn't know how this tight end room would shake out in a run-heavy offense. But had I known that he was going to run a route on 80% of Justin Herbert's dropbacks, I absolutely would have not bet on his under. So that's a week 1 lesson. Love, getting lessons and being wrong in week 1. But he is clearly the lead pass catching tight end in this offense, taking over the Gerald Everett role. But this is also an offense that just has a ton of available targets with, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Austin Eckler on new teams. So I think there's an opportunity for Hurst to push, maybe not tight end 1 value, but at least solid tight end 2 value if this trend holds. So just given the tight end landscape right now, he's my tight end 17. But he is a player that I was very encouraged with his week 1 usage. And if, this week, the Chargers will probably be leading most of the game at Carolina. But if and when they get in a trailing game script and they're kind of forced to throw, I think Hurst specifically could, potentially put up high-end tight end 2 numbers.
Yeah, he's my tight end 17 as well. And I saw that he ran a route right around 80% of the time. And that's what you need at this position. I'm going for a similar guy. And I hit on the same guy last week, and I hit on him despite him catching only 4 passes for 47 yards and no touchdowns. Colby Parkinson finished as the tight end 7 with 4 for 47. So I have him as a top 10, tight end yet again against Arizona. He ran a route on 82% of Stafford's dropbacks. Now you have no Nakua for the whole game. He did run a route about 30% of the time last week. So you could see the target rate go up for Parkinson, as you mentioned on, I believe it was the waivers podcast. So, yeah, it's just an ugly, ugly landscape. You have Njoku banged up. You have Ferguson banged up. Likely, you don't know if it's, exactly if it's going to continue. So, yeah, you have to have, I think Parkinson's right there, a startable tight end 1, or at least a fringe guy this week. And it can't be said about many guys. So,
yep.
Yeah. Who are you on?
Cole Kmet. Hopefully this will be the last time I bring him up on this pod, but he's a guy, I was low heading into the season just because of the added target competition with Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze, but also feared more of a, 50-50 split with Gerald Everett. He's more familiar with Shane Waldron's scheme. And sure enough, Cole Kmet wasn't even the starting tight end. Everett was clearly the lead tight end. It was a 65-35 split in routes run rate in favor of Everett. So Kmet just absolutely plummets down my ranks. Probably won't have to talk about him again anytime soon. However, with Odunze potentially out this week and longer, it could force the Bears to use more 2 tight end sets. So Kmet, could have a better game this week. But I think when it comes to this Bears tight end room, it's clear that Gerald Everett is the guy, at least for now. So right now, Komet's all the way down to tight end 31 for me.
Yeah, it's tough to know. I mean, you make a good point. They could just go a lot more 2 tight end sets this week. But either way, he would still be splitting the snaps with Everett at worst, which is something like last year he was the clear number 1 tight end. And I don't know what the Bears do. They probably will go more 2 tight end sets because I mean they had Tyler Scott, who was expected to be their number 4 wide receiver, inactive, so that means they don't really care about him that much. Velus Jones, they have him moonlighting at running back.
Yep.
DeAndre Carter is more of a special teams guy. So yeah, they probably don't love their wide receivers after the top 3. So I could see Komet jumping up in snaps, but also Caleb Williams threw for 93 yards or whatever it was last week. Some terrible.
Yeah,
so,
but
either way,
in his defense,
it's like yeah.
This will be the last time I defend him. Every quarterback played like shit last week, except for a handful. So that's the only leash I'm going to give him, but it was a terrible performance.
For me, it's another guy who just wrong end of a committee, Luke Musgrave. He ran a route on only 21% of the dropbacks, played on 23% of the pass snaps. Tucker Kraft ran a route on 79% of the dropbacks and played on 95% of the pass snaps. So similar, I not different reasons, but just because Malik Willis is the quarterback, I do expect the Packers to go a little more heavy, do more closer to the line of scrimmage. But still, Musgrave is on the wrong end of this committee. Last year, he was kind of in that Kraft spot to open the year, and Kraft was a guy, getting like 20-30% of the snaps. So even if it's like a 50-50 split, it's still not enough, especially with Malik Willis at quarterback, to trust Musgrave. So he's just completely out of relevance in any format for me right now. All right, tight end prop. What are you doing?
All right, this should be a fun one. Dalton Kincaid. What the hell was that? What was his final stat line? Like 1 catch for 4 yards or something?
He had a catch? I didn't. I missed that.
Yeah, I'm assuming he had a catch. Well, let's. This is why week 2 is fun. Let's see. They're at Miami.
Yep, Thursday night
this week. I'm going to set the line at 42.5 receiving yards. Are you going over or under?
Ooh, that's a good line. I have him under. I have him about 40. Yeah. So I was high on him this season. I thought he would be he had that like George Kittle upside, but still a volatile kind of guy. At least he had the route rate was where I wanted it to be, right around 83%, 43% for Knox. But Coleman also looked good. It's another one of these games, even though it's a night game, humid, hot. Buffalo always kind of struggles when they go into those humid, hot environments. It just could be a little more of a slog than we think. So I'm not ready to give him like a big stat line. But, I mean, in DFS, I think that's where, you play him as a bounce back. But in terms of median, I think, I think 42.5 is a great line, and I'm slightly under. All right, that is going to do it for our NFL Week 2 player projections episode here on the Fantasy Flex. Be sure to subscribe to the Fantasy Flex podcast so you don't miss an episode all season. Check out fantasylabs.com for all of our fantasy football content. Don't forget to use promo code FLEX40 for $40 off this month. You can find Sean on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this money.